Welcome to Florida is Our Domain.
Hello and welcome back to Florida is Our Domain with Tony Policastro. Tony is an eminent domain attorney and founder of Policastro Law Group. With over 30 years of experience, he's represented national corporations, business owners, and individual landowners across Florida, ensuring they get full compensation when their property is taken for public use. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode, we're diving into compensation. How are offers calculated? Can you challenge them? And who pays for legal and expert fees? Let's break it down. Tony, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Happy to be back with you today.
Absolutely. Do you find that your clients feel that the condemning authority's first offer is pretty low?
Yes, overall, they do find that the offer is low. I think they feel the offer is low mostly because they are more familiar with the property than the condemning authority. So they know how their property functions and works best. And often that really isn't taken account by the condemning authority. So they will find fault, whether it's a residential owner or a business owner, with the approach that the government has taken and the valuation.
Are there a decent amount of times where the owner is a little bit, overestimating the value of their property?
They can be, but usually, they know the value that's going on generally in the area. I find a lot of owners actually, have comparable sales of properties that have sold around them. So they usually have a pretty good understanding and beat on the market and what's going on. And then, as I said, they know how their property, functions best, especially if it's a business. They know how many parking spaces they need. They know what sort of trucks or cars come on site on a regular basis. So they know if the taking is changing that on-site circulation, changing driveway widths or depths, how that's going to impact their business. If it's a residential property and the taking is off the front, they certainly know about the additional noise that's going to come for increased traffic. They also know that the setback can be changing if it's to the front of their property, if it's going to be impacting, let's say, their septic, or if the taking is from the backyard, how it's going to affect their privacy, how it's going to affect just, again, the noise factor and even the safety factor.
Okay. And so if a property owner believes the offer is too low, what's the process to contest it?
Well, the first thing is to hire an experienced eminent domain attorney, such as myself. And then what I do is we assemble a team. If it's a real estate taking without a business, we definitely have an engineer involved and an appraiser involved. Both are key elements. Obviously, the engineer needs to be involved in order to really review and read the construction plans, know what's going on from the standpoint of drainage to the property, any grade change that may be going on to the property. The appraiser, of course, is going to take a look at the sales that the condemning authority appraiser has used, take a look to see if that condemning authority appraiser has assessed any damages, severance damages to the remainder property or not, and then see if they should have assessed damages. And so those are the sort of things that the appraiser and the engineer working together will come up with their opinions, which will form the basis of any counteroffer that we give to the condemning authority.
And those counteroffers, are they negotiating directly with the condemning authority or an agent working on their behalf?
What normally happens is prior to lawsuit being initiated, I would be dealing with the acquisition agent. The acquisition agent may work directly for the condemning authority, or they may be an independent contractor for the condemning authority, and they will be the person that you give the counteroffer to. They'll take that back to whoever the condemning authority is, and they'll work with that government representative, their client representative, or a team of government bureaucrats within the condemning authority and then they will basically respond to the counter offer. It usually takes a few weeks, and then they'll make another offer normally, and then you'll begin negotiations essentially. If you can't settle it and lawsuit begins, then I'd be dealing with my counterpart attorney, and I'd be negotiating with that person. But again, they would probably be using the same client representative as the acquisition agent would use. And once the attorney's involved, most of the cases at that point go to mediation. And usually that takes a day. I think we've discussed that previously regarding, negotiating out a case.
Do property owners often accept an offer without realizing that they could have pushed a little bit to get more?
Not my clients. I always advise them to go ahead and try to get additional compensation. I can say I've always been successful at getting them additional compensation. So it's always important to take a look at that appraisal report, what that offer is based upon. I do believe you always can get them additional compensation. If they're on their own, unfortunately, they may go ahead and without having that team of experts behind them, they might, of course, unfortunately, accept that offer. Everybody has a different circumstance. So some people, want to accept the offer. Some people are actually, frankly, afraid of the government and don't realize they can contest the offer and don't realize that they have the right to have, in Florida at least, an attorney represent them and have their own experts, such as an engineer and appraiser that we've discussed before, and other experts if necessary, represent them without any cost to the property owner or business owner.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you're trying to do it on your own, yeah,
right, exactly. That that's never really a good idea. Even if you think the taking is simple, you're best to hire an attorney and get experts to take a look at it. You want to make sure that, an engineer takes a look at it, that your property isn't going to flood in the after, that they're not actually narrowing your driveways. There's a number of things that you want to take a look at, even if it's, say, looks like a simple taking on paper.
What types of experts do you get involved when you're determining compensation, and which ones do you find are most critical to a case?
Well, I think the first thing is you always want to hire an engineer if it's a partial taking. So if there's a partial taking, you want the engineer to, take a look at those plans, as I've said, give you an idea of how this property is going to function in the after situation. Again, taking a look at how they're building this road. What are they building in the part taken? Are they just widening out the road to more lanes? Are they putting in a bike path? Are they putting in a median in front of your property? And then that way you can't turn out left in the after. So, and then how far down the road after you make a right do you have to travel before you can make a U-turn and go the other way? So those are all things the engineer looks at, besides, as I mentioned, about the drainage situation to the property after, because when you're putting more asphalt down, right, you're creating more runoff, and that needs to be captured successfully. So the engineer takes a look at all that. They'll take a look at the plans. They'll take a look at drainage calculations. So those are all important things that an engineer does. A real estate appraiser, of course, is very important and key to take a look at the government's appraisal, take a look at their comparables. The appraisers I hire are essentially doing two appraisals in one. They're looking at what's the before value of this property. Then after the taking occurs and the road is in, they take a look at after sales. So they're really doing an after value, a separate appraisal to the property as well. And of course, they're valuing the part taken. And the engineer and the appraiser really work hand in glove, taking a look at, is there ways to fix the problem, which, we call a cost to cure, and how do we fix it? And does that fix the problem in entirely, or is there still remaining damages to the property, which again are called severance damages. So that's all that the engineer and the appraiser work on. Then you also often need a land planner to be involved. And what does the land planner do? They take a look at the property again in the before and after situation. Land planners can let you know, if the taking is going to impede the development of the property. So if you've got vacant land, can you still develop it in the same way? Is what you wanted to build in the before situation the same as you can build in the after, as far as building size, which we call building envelope? So those are things that the land planner looks at. They also can look at the county codes, the ordinances, make sure that in the after, if the property is needs to be grandfathered in because there's some issues with, say, landscape buffer. And let's just say that the landscape buffer is being taken or consumed within the take area. Do you have to put that landscape buffer back? Now, there's a number of counties that will have an eminent domain relief ordinance that will allow you to not have to put the buffer back, but other counties don't. So you'll have to put that buffer back. And does that buffer in a business consume parking? And then you have to take a look at that and how many parking spaces are going to be lost. So the land planner also, I can add, takes a look at, what is the reasonably foreseeable time frame to develop vacant property. They can also look at, is this the highest and best use of the property? Maybe you have agricultural property, but the highest and best use is residential. So the appraiser should be using residential values. Or maybe the property is residential now, but in the future could be put to the highest and best use of office or commercial. So those are all important elements to take into account. And I was just going to say, and then there are other experts as well. If a business is involved, you definitely need a CPA.
So when it comes to the compensation, does it cover the value, or does it only cover the value of the land itself? Or can it include things like business damages, relocation costs, things like that?
Well, if you've got real estate, it should be covering just not only the land taken, but what are the improvements in the take area? What are the costs to cure? A cost to cure could be putting up fencing or a landscape buffer for a house that's having a taking in front of it or behind it. You also are going to have severance damage, as I said, damages to the remainder. If it's a business and the business has been existing continuously on the property for 5 years or more, you have the right to make business damages. If it is a situation where it is a wipeout and the business needs to be relocated, then you really have to take a look at a relocation claim. The important element to always keep in mind is how to get your client fully compensated and what damages flow from the taking of the property.
Mm-hmm. And beyond just monetary compensation, what kinds of creative solutions have you negotiated that help your clients protect their business or property?
Definitely. Often it isn't always just the money that's the most important element. Sometimes it is, let's just say you've got a gas station and they have 2 openings to the gas station, and the DOT plans call for closing one of the driveways, one of the access points. Then if you can get that other access point reopened, which I've been able to do successfully, that's a major win for the gas station because it really helps, obviously, with entering and exiting the property.
Absolutely.
And so that's important. Median cuts. So if they're putting a median up in front of your property and you can get either a full median cut or even a directional median cut going into the property for a business, that can be key. Driveway width. So often the DOT tries to narrow someone's driveway, getting that driveway wider to get trucks in. Maybe they've put in only 24 feet and you really need a 36-foot wide driveway put back in. So those are some of the elements that are, if you will, non-monetary elements that can help settle cases and can also help people save their businesses.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. And it also it speaks to how difficult this is to navigate without counsel, without somebody, without
No,
some
you're
sort of
you're right. You
organization.
you want to get somebody who is well versed in eminent domain law, well experienced, has seen all sorts of different issues over the years, and to help you because often you may not know. I mean, why would the layperson necessarily know about, hey, how do we get this driveway back to open? How do we get to the driveway widened? And usually, what it is that compels the DOT to do that is you've made a claim, a substantial monetary claim, and if they feel like you'll back off on some of that money by by widening the driveway or reopening a driveway, and that will help alleviate them having to pay money to the owner, then they may be willing to do that and justify doing that.
Are there any other more common uh, things that an owner might overlook when deciding whether to accept or challenge an offer?
Well, I think what they often overlook is if they're on their own, they may overlook that they can have an attorney and experts uh, be paid for at the end of the case by the condemning authorities. So I think that's important. I think they might overlook the sales approach and taking a look at the sales that the government has used, and if there are better, more pertinent sales available. I mean, people don't necessarily know all the comparable sales that they need to know to put together that appraiser report. They also definitely need that engineering help so they don't overlook grade changes, drainage issue changes in the after situation.
All right, interesting stuff for sure. Thanks, Tony, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of Florida is Our Domain. If you've received a government offer or suspect one might be coming, don't assume it's final. You have the right to full compensation, you have the right to counsel, and you may be entitled to much more than you were told. Visit policastrolaw.com to schedule a consultation with Tony and get all of the facts. Also, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review. We got lots more great information coming your way. Tony, always great chatting with you. Thanks so much for all the insight.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.